Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne would never take advantage of our innate gullibility.
Well, sorry Gran, because finally, after nearly 154 days of waiting for news from Atlas West, Western fans finally have a release date for Nocturne HD Remaster. May 25th, 2021. This should be, and is, great news, as a whole new generation of fans will be able to easily access and play arguably one of the greatest JRPGs of all time in my personal opinion on modern systems. But there is one whale-sized catch to all of this good news. Now before I start criticizing Atlas and their decisions around this game, let me just mention that. Will I buy this game? Yes. Have I bought this game? Yes. Do I love Nocturne? Yes. So everything I say in this video is out of pure love and care for Atlas and the games they make. But sometimes, it doesn't feel like Atlas show that same love and care to us, and this feels kinda prevalent in Nocturne HD. It's been made clear through statements from the Nocturne HD team that one of the goals for this remaster was to make the game feel as close to the original as possible, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. I'd much prefer a Nocturne HD that's been changed less with a few quality of life changes, that I'll get into in a moment, than a Nocturne that's been drastically changed from the one we all know and love. But it's when you disguise the game as being as close as possible to the original, just so you can lazily neglect obvious quality of life improvements that should be in the game just so you can pump out the game and get a quick buck, that I have a problem with. This is a clear attempt by Atlas to just quickly disguise this game so it looks like we're putting care and thought into it, but instead do as little work as possible to make money. Like, these are quality of life changes that people have been asking for in a re-release since the game came out in 2003. Like, not knowing where you need to go on the map still, skill inheritance still being random, which they did fix in a patch, so good on them, and other issues. Now, even if they didn't add those improvements and just re-release the game on modern platforms, which is basically just what they did, I would still expect the basic necessities from a AAA studio like Atlas, like expecting the game to run well, but Yahweh help you if you'd expect it from this game, dude. This game runs like shit on PS4, and even worse on Switch. Like, how do you mess up so bad that consoles that run games that look like this and this struggle to run a game that looks like this? Like, kinda just shows the community how quickly this game was rushed together. The proof really is in the pudding when it comes to this game, isn't it? And let me just say also, that while the game is in HD and it looks pretty good, some of the textures in this game are horrendous, especially the ones on buildings. The textures on them have ended up being super blocky and pasty, which isn't the only thing in this game that's blocky, because let me talk about the cutscenes. Oh boy. All the cutscenes in this so-called HD remaster still have the same 4:3 aspect ratio as the game from the PS2. They couldn't even be bothered to go as far as to just stretch the cutscenes in a 16:9, and as a result the cutscenes look like vertical videos from your iPhone when displayed, with blurry sides. But for me, I feel like the worst offender in this is the compressed battle themes. Music is super important to me in games, especially SMT, because basically every game in the series has at least 5 songs that I love. For Nocturne, I basically love the whole soundtrack. These songs, especially the battle themes, slap harder than nearly any of the RPGs I have ever played. So when Atlas go ahead and can't even be bothered to put in the OST versions of the songs and all that crisp, clean glory, it bores my blood. Like, how much effort does it take to even do something like go onto YouTube, look up the soundtrack and download it, even if they hate re-uploads? How much effort is it to take the uncompressed songs from the CD that they publish in their own collector's edition in Japan? Like, this is the company that made the original Nocturne, SMT4, Soul Hackers, the Rider games, Persona 1, 2, 3, 4, Rond. Like, I expect this company to making the best of the best in every product, because their track record is pure quality. This sort of stuff is what I expect from companies like EA and Bethesda to do, not Atlas. While there is an argument to be made that Atlas's A-team is busy working on SMT5 to hopefully get it out this year, but come on, even that isn't big enough of an excuse for a multi-million-dollar company to put out a product that looks and runs like this on the most up-to-date systems on the market. I would honestly suggest that at this point, if you really want to play the game in HD, that you just grab an ISO of Nocturne of Vinny's Lair and just emulate the original game in 1080p if your computer or Xbox can handle it. Because at least you know you'll get a fluid and stable experience. As much as I would like to support Atlus by buying their games, particularly the SMT series, when they pump out crap like this, it feels hard to justify the $70 price tag. Oh yeah, let's talk about that. We all know that Atlus has always been a greedy-ass, stinky-ass company, but it has felt especially noticeable since 2018, with the release of Persona 3 Dancing in Moonlight and Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight. That's around when I started noticing worrying behaviours from Atlus when it comes to making and releasing some of their medium to small scale releases, because this is when Atlus really started to dip their toes into Season Pass mania. I mean, like, who in their right mind, except true Persona sweaty boys, would buy $80 worth of Season Pass DLCs? Again, I would not expect Atlus to be partaking in this behaviour that EA does. I mean, Atlus have a habit of milking their franchises and games, particularly Persona, for all their worth, but come on. But for this game, Atlus decided that the way they will add awful DLC is to charge $10 if you want to replace Rido with Dante, and while it's completely optional, I can't believe they would charge $10 for basically just a Rido reskin. Along with the crap DLC prices for this remaster, there's also a new scumming practice in town, and that's the 4-day early digital deluxe edition crap that started with Persona 5 Strikers. Locking the game behind a paywall shows that they could have released the game way earlier than its actual release date in the West, but no, we're gonna lock it behind a paywall so you can pay more for our shitty remaster. It just makes me sad that Atlus seem more and more inclined with every release to add awful editions like this. This game should be $40 max anyway, so it's a bigger deal that Atlus continually has to charge for things that should definitely be included in the base game. I of course understand that Atlus is a company whose main focus is to make profit off their products, but action like this will continue to damage their reputations with their own fans if they continue to do this 4-day early digital only edition. Releasing editions like this aren't only just a slap in the face to the average consumer, it's also a massive slap in the face to physical game collectors like myself. Atlus are clearly pushing people to buy digitally so they make more profit, and I mean, fair enough, but they didn't even bother to release a full physical collector's edition here in the West. They released one in Japan, but I guess the West was again too much work for Atlus to handle. Yes, we are in a global pandemic and that could possibly slow manufacturing of a physical collector's edition in the West, but they released Japan's collector's edition during the pandemic as well, so I don't see why it would matter. This probably doesn't have much to do with Atlus Japan anyway, and it's probably Atlus West refusing to get off their arse and do something good for their fans. Speaking of Atlus West laziness, might I bring up how goddamn long it took for this game to be translated into English? I get that they had to add voice acting too, but an English translation of Nocturne already exists, but it still took good old Atlus West half a goddamn year from the Japanese release to the Western release. This is yet another frustrating problem with Atlus West and their slow translating, because just recently, Persona 5 Strikers released in the West, a full year after the Japanese release. And again, even with a full English translation already there for Nocturne, it still would have taken them 6 months from the Japanese date to the Western date. I saw Nyali bring this up in his video, which I'll link below, but I don't understand either how Atlus West have become slower at translating games. SMT4 only took a month and a half from the Japan release date to the Western release date, and seemingly from 2013 to 2021, we now have to wait a full year from the Japan release date to the Western release date of an Atlus game, while other companies have become faster and more efficient in translating their games. I just can't fathom how the hell they become slower at translating the games. Has Atlus West had a drop in translating staff or staff in general? Again, I love Atlus. Their games, music, and fanbase have to be some of the best of all time, but it just really hurts to see that this is how they're turning out, you know? I don't want my favourite developer to turn into another Bethesda. Again, everything I say in this video is out of pure passion and love for Atlus and their games, but it just pains me inside that this is how they seem to treat their games and their consumers. Of course there are good things to come out of this remake, like HD graphics, a PC release and voice acting, not to mention this is the first time we're gonna get the Maniacs Chronicles edition in the West. I also theorise that the reason that they remastered Nocturne now is because SMT5 is tied to Nocturne in some major way, and Atlus saw an opportunity to give fans an easy way to play Nocturne before 5. These things are good, but there are a lot of strings attached. but I have come prepared with a suggestion for Alice on how they can make it up to their fanbase.